Good evening. If we can stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everybody. First item on the agenda is the report of the chairman, and we have an acknowledgement of a donation. The board will acknowledge the Wella Foundation Incorporated Board of Trustees for their approval of a donation received from Massac High School's Science and Math Department. The Science Department donation of $2,094.30 will be used to purchase synthetic frogs with reusable organs for biology frog dissection lab, anatomy and physiology and biology classes. The math donation of $859.90 will be used for the purchase of 6 XP Pen Star Wireless 2.4 gigahertz, I guess is a G, gigs. Digital tablets for teachers to write on and be able to walk around the classroom. The Wella Foundation's Board of Trustees approves an additional donation of $1,045.80 to be utilized by Massac High School for academic or technology purchases that will benefit the students and or teachers for the 2020-21 school year. So we'd like to thank them for that donation.
Absolutely.
All right. Moving on, we have our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Nick and Jerry. Well, any discussion? On our agenda on item B, we have approval of appointments. We are approving the permanent appointments of Joe Cobza as superintendent of schools, Jack Ceccolini as assistant superintendent of schools, and Michael Crawley as principal of Jockey Hollow School and the STEM Academy. All of these appointments right now are currently either acting or interim, and they will be moving to the permanent positions. Anybody else have discussion on that?
Smart move.
Yes, very.
I just want to quickly, I want to, first of all, thank you. I'm honored to take this position. I take tremendous pride in this district, and I take my responsibilities very seriously. I'm like I said, I'm really happy, to work in a district with so many dedicated professionals, administrators, teachers, paras, secretaries, custodians, unaffiliated. It's a great place to work, and we have a lot of challenges. We all know that we have a lot of challenges facing us right now, but we're going to keep plugging along, and that's what we've been doing, and we're going to get through this. We're going to get to the other end at some point. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention. Both Mike and Jack, and congratulate them on their positions, and just thank them for their service and stepping up. Did Mike leave? Where's Mike?
No, she's back there.
Oh,
He's
hey,
hiding behind
Mike.
Jim.
All right. I really, when, as last year wore on, Jack came to me and said, hey, listen, if there's anything I can do, to help out. And he was really, for a long time, doing a lot of double duty between the middle school principalship and helping me out up at central office. And it just turned into a really logical fit for Jack to move up with the experience that he's had in the district at all three levels, and his relationships with staff and just knowing the system. It's been great. I am completely indebted to the man. I always will be. And so I just really want to thank Jack, and I want to congratulate Mike too. I've had the utmost respect for Mike as an educational leader in this district since day one. Mike is well grounded in all things that are good for kids, and he's only been at Jockey. I didn't know he was at Jockey Hollow as an instructional leader, but as the building principal right now, he's just doing some great things in the midst of really adverse times. So, congratulate both of Mike and Jack.
David.
If I can add to that, Joe, you kind of mentioned this, but to you and to Jack, you both stepped up. You've earned this. You're both humble. You lead by example. I don't think people know this, but you're both on last year's salaries, and you both also took 3 furlough days. So that's leadership by example, and we appreciate that. Joe, your charge from this board is to run the district. You're the superintendent, the CEO, you're the general. Run it without hesitation or with apology, and we have your back. And thank you for everything.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, Jack and Mike, everybody, thank you.
Yep. Long time coming. We're grateful to have the 3 of you.
Thank you.
And now you don't have to put acting in front of emails anymore.
Yeah, change your auto signature.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Great, thank you, motion passes, congratulations to everybody. We will move on to our reports of our committees and liaisons. So up first, we have our Massac board reps, if you'd like to come up, girls.
Good evening, Monroe Board of Education. I want to start tonight off with congratulating Mr. Kavza on his appointment to Superintendent of Monroe Public Schools. Then I also like to recognize Mr. Ceccolini on his appointment to Assistant Superintendent. And lastly, I'd like to thank Mr. Crowley, congratulate Mr. Crowley on his appointment to as Principal of Jockey Hollow and STEM. And now for our Massac sports. Our Massac field hockey team defeats Weston 5-1 to take the 2nd seed in the States. And the field hockey team also had a 5K for pancreatic cancer, and they raised $606. And then our Massac girls volleyball team won 3-1 over Joe Barlow in the SWC Regional Championship, and our lost. And then our girls soccer team ties Newtown 1.
Thank you.
Auditions for the winter drama are complete, and the cast and crew will begin rehearsals this week. The show will be an evening of one-act plays by acclaimed American playwright Thornton Wilder, author of Our Town. Also, congratulations to all students inducted into the National Business Honor Society last Tuesday. New inductees include Ryan Camerano, Brenna Chopsky, Mia Del Poali, Almas Gafour, and Kyle Malloy. In addition, the 2020 Massac High School Forum on Underage Drinking and Substance Abuse, sponsored by Adam, is a virtual event this year. The YouTube link will be posted on the Massac main website and will be live until Thursday, November 19th. And now Suja with robotics.
Massac hosted the first robotics event in Connecticut this season. 11 teams competed, and Massac had 3 of the 4 teams in the finals. It was a great day for everyone who competed, and Team 4478D from Massac competed with a team from Daniel Hand High School to take the championship over teams 4478F and 4478R from Massac. In other robotics news, congratulations to seniors Caleb Manicky and Alex Patrick, along with juniors Aiden Kusa, Will Gallant, Justin Loescher, Jacob Moreno, Vinathy Sampson, and Therese Zelensky, who are being inducted into the International Robotics Honor Society this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, thanks, girls. Does anybody else have any committee reports this evening?
Yeah, Donna, I attended the Curriculum Council meeting on November 4th. One of the items that's going to be coming up today was the books for both biology and chemistry. Both, as I understand it, are 10-year cycles, so it's due. And the other point we discussed was the continue work on the vision of the graduate and creating rubrics, breaking down everybody, and laying out a timeline for how to proceed.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Jeff? No? All right, anybody else?
Policy meeting met tonight. major policy committee met tonight. I believe we have 3 policies that are going to be introduced next meeting.
Great. Thank you. Nick?
Board of Finance is Thursday, and I will be there and can update at the next meeting if there's anything of note.
Perfect, thank you. Anybody else? All right, hearing none, we will move on to public participation. I will start in here before I go to the phone. Is anybody on the phone? Nobody is. Okay, anybody here then? All right, hearing none, we will move on to our report of our acting superintendent. And just so that everybody knows.
Check that.
I'm sorry. Report of our superintendent. And just so that everybody knows, it's 7:45. If we go get before 8 o'clock to COVID impact on school, we're going to come back to that because Dr.
Thank you.
Dion, who is our medical advisor, and Nancy, what's her last name?
Nancy Brault.
Brault, who's the health director, are going to join the call for that segment to discuss that COVID impact on schools. So just so that everybody knows that that's why we're jumping over it and moving on if we're there before 8.
Yeah, Paul, let me know if you should be getting people calling in now at least. I know Nancy and Dr. Diane, we're going to... Perfect, thank you. I think... where the heck are my notes? First one is a review of the fund activity statement. Ron?
Okay, month over month, not a lot of changes from last month. Again, the 2 lines which are, showing large negative balances are both COVID related. We did start reviewing today the initial filing for the grant, basically reimbursement. So we'll be divvying up the money that's been spent between the 2 grants, the CARES Act and the CRF. Other than that, there's not
It went off. Sorry,
that's all right.
I think you had Shannon on and it went off.
Other than that, there's not a whole lot of updates from last month.
Anybody have questions? Nick?
Just a quick question. The COVID personnel line, that's 37,951. Is that going to be covered by?
It's going to be covered by both grants.
And who's in that?
Joe, you want to answer that, or you want me to?
I'm not exactly sure who's particularly in that one.
the
Long-term, it's people who are covering for some people
Yeah,
who
it's-
are out. So
it's a var-
it's a variety. We have substitutes who are coming in, teachers who have to be quarantined for a period of time, it's covering them.
So we're capturing that in a separate line from the ones above that are like, sub call-ups and permanent subs. It's in a oh wow, that's great. Okay, good.
Which, yeah, we're trying to capture as much of those expenses as we can and get them covered under the CARES Act and the Coronavirus Relief Fund.
So is there going to be, how are we going to apply the grant money to the books? Are we going to do it at the end of the fiscal year? Are we going to do like a mid-year adjustment?
We're actually out in the process of allocating. Started it today.
Okay, so in the next activity statement update, we'll see the deficits in those lines will be reduced.
Exactly.
A month?
Being allocated out to the grant funds.
So monthly going forward? Or what do you foresee?
A lot of the reimbursements are going to happen for actual expenses over the next, up through the end of the calendar year. So, yeah, you'll be seeing them November, December, January.
Okay.
So then would it be possible when you allocate those funds, like would it be possible to see like a descending balance? Like if we have the 2 grants and those add up together, like can we see what's coming off of them so that if we have more COVID expenses that come up, like as a board, will we know how much is left in the grant funding for the rest
So
of
we're
the
going to
year?
be journaling them out, but what we can do is provide the board with the detail of what's behind the journal entries at that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because we have a set number, right, of the
Correct.
grants that are in, right? So as we take stuff off of it, we'll be able to see what we took off of it, like the COVID personnel line, right? When we journal the grant money to there, we'll see that that came off, and then that'll be minus from this balance, and we'll have this much left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It'll just be easier to track as we
Right,
go into, but yeah.
Ron, any headway yet on the unemployment compensation?
No, nothing to report at this time. As far as getting monies credited, no.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
The two big negative balances you talked about were, there we have a tuition private, that's special ed, right?
That's special ed, yes.
Okay. So that'll be next meeting. Well, the special ed update at our next meeting.
Yeah, and again, that's showing a big negative because no revenue has been booked.
Right, we
Right,
haven't
yeah.
received
We have
our
a-
grant.
Yeah.
And the supplies other is the COVID expenses, you said there's
Correct.
COVID in there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything for Ron with regard to this fund statement? All right, hearing none, we will move on.
The budget liaisons, I thank you all for sending me your choices. I put them in there, Nick with curriculum instruction and PD, Dave with facilities and IT, Alan special ed, Jeff athletics, Shannon Masick, Jerry and George Jockey Hollow, and Christine and Donna the elementary schools. I know this is kind of our first our first go around at this, so and I know it's we'll be rolling the budget out in a little over around 2 weeks from now. So what I thought would be best I could have these folks reach out to you guys and just set up like a little communication, and maybe they could just I think for this year maybe just give you an executive summary if you have ask any questions.
Perfect. Is that good
whatever
with
you-
everybody?
Yeah, or email us their department budgets, their proposed.
Yep.
What they propose to you would probably help.
You got it. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for volunteering.
Yep.
Everything is covered, which is fantastic.
You're not pulling double duty.
No, I have one. I said, just put me wherever there is left. I'll take last, but wherever, I'll just fill in, so I'm good.
We were all pretty predictable
Yes.
in our choice.
Yeah, I was so shocked when I
Yeah.
saw Jeff's name next to athletics, I
Yeah.
have to say.
I don't know if you want to go on to maybe
Yeah,
old
let's
business
move
and new
on
business,
because
and
it's
then
still
hopefully-
before 8
yeah.
o'clock. So let's move on to old business. We have 4 policies that we reviewed for the first time last meeting that we have a second review and vote anticipated. Those policies are policy 3280, gifts, grants, and bequests. 3231, medical reimbursement for special education students. 3240, tuition fees. And 3260, sales, trade-ins, and disposal of books, equipment, and supplies. Do I have a motion to approve those 4 policies as presented? Thank you, Jerry. Do I have a second? Thank you, David. Is there any discussion on them? I know we talked about each of them last time.
I just have one question on 3280, which is the gifts, grants, and bequests policy. I know we were updating it for crowdfunding and
Yeah.
GoFundMe and all that stuff. But in the second paragraph, it says before any donation is requested, the building principal must be informed of the request, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, if we pass this, if someone sets up a crowdfunding page without the building principal's assent or notification, and let's say they raise $500, what happens to that money? Is it still going to come to the school building or the district?
That's a good question.
I would think, I would hope that that wouldn't happen. I think I think based on this, I think they'd have to, we'd have to work in reverse, and it would be kind of an ask for forgiveness instead of permission situation where, but my only concern is that if it was something that did work against something that the principal didn't want to have going on, then we'd have an issue there. And I'm not totally sure how it would work, but I would imagine the funds would have to be returned.
Okay.
Yeah, we've never had an incident where anyone's applied for funds without asking the building administrator. You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, it's just, in the past, you always go to your administrator to make sure it's okay, especially when you're putting it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, usually before any fundraising is done, the fundraisers usually will send either the building principal some kind of a sheet. In the normal, any normal, go back to the days of like bake sales and whatnot. There's a form submitted to the building principal to let them know, hey, listen, we want to raise money to buy warm up jerseys, and we're gonna do this particular fundraiser, and it's approved by the principal first. So I can't think of times when it didn't go that way. So I would just hope it. Yeah, we got to continue doing that, and the building principal needs to be in the loop.
I think that the purpose of the policies too is to define what the policy is and not the what ifs or the whatnot. So so that's the policy, and if the policy isn't complied with, then there's a level of discretion that needs to be enacted upon more procedural basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, any other questions on those 4 policies? All right, hearing none, all in favor? Great, thank you, motion passes. I know I think at this point we should wait because I would hate for Jim to come up and start doing his presentation and then like 2 minutes into it.
Paul, how many people do we have on right now? Still one? Just one? Can they hear me right now? Can they speak too? Okay.
I think you're good.
Hi, Joe.
Is that you, Nancy?
Sure is.
How you doing, Nance?
I am well, thank you. How is everyone?
Everyone's doing well, thank you. Hey, listen, I'm glad you could join us, and maybe we could start. And I know, I know Dr. Dion was going to join us right around 8 o'clock as well. So, maybe we could kind of skip around. Maybe I'll talk a little bit first about some of the impact on schools, and then I wanted both you and Dr. Dion to be available to address a few questions that I have, and if any of the board members have questions, I'm sure you guys can address those too. But the topic of this particular area is looking at the impact that COVID's having on our schools, and besides the obvious medical impact it's having, and the impact to education, where it's really, really, really creating, and I think you're starting to see this manifest around the area, especially is major staffing issues for us. It's really, we're really, really, really struggling with staffing. Just to give you, some quick numbers from last Monday to this Monday, we've had kind of a steady increase of staff who have been put out on quarantine for a number of reasons, and I'll talk about that in a second. But last Monday we had 27 staff on quarantine. That doesn't mean that they're sick. That means that they, some of them could have been sick, but some of them, could have been a close contact of someone. I'll go through some of the other reasons why they're quarantined. But 27 on Monday, 26 on Tuesday, 31, 35, 38, 46 today. We have 46 staff members on quarantine. That's obviously having a really significant impact on our abilities to staff the schools. Like I said, some people are either in quarantine or isolation. Isolation is, it's been very few staff members that have tested positive, but you're out either way if you were a close contact or if you've tested positive. Like I said, those people who have tested, those people who have been determined to be a close contact for 6 feet for 15 minutes within a 24-hour period are also being quarantined. The one that's really hitting us the hardest right now is, other towns, staff that are living in another town and their child's school or their child's daycare may be closed. I don't know if you guys got the email that went out on School Messenger today, but the Western Connecticut Superintendents Association got together today to write kind of a joint effort letter to go out to all of our districts, just to, ask families to be responsible. We know that the holidays are coming up. There's particular guidelines that the CDC has put out. We're asking folks to follow those guidelines. There's travel advisories that are out. We're asking folks to, to follow those travel advisories, so we can, have a safe return, hopefully after the holidays. But having other districts close impacts us. We start to close, it starts to impact them if they have, and vice versa. So it's a very symbiotic relationship between the two. We have a lot of people in quarantine because they have family members who have tested positive for COVID, and a lot also for a child who was a close contact who needs to quarantine, and now the parents need to stay home as well. So so like I said, 46 staff members today in quarantine. We'll be getting some back over the next few days, and hopefully not losing many, but. Just to give you an idea, we have another 6 staff who are out on some kind of a leave, in one form or another. And this is, I'm just talking right now, just teachers and paras, I'm not talking about other staff as well. So, we had another 33 people today that were absent for some other reason. There was, whether it was, a personal reason or whatever. To leave us today, just so you understand. And today there was some other things going on in the district that we will be hopefully in a little bit better position tomorrow. But it left us today with 48 teachers with no designated sub. So how the heck do you cover a district with 48? We have 48. I shouldn't say teachers. It wasn't just teachers and para educators. 48 of them with no designated sub. In some cases, in the paras situations, we're not going to backfill those. One of the things, of those 48, 13 of them were at Jockey Hollow. We closed Jockey Hollow. So how did we were able to deal with this? Closing Jockey Hollow helped. We were able to move some of the Jockey Hollow staff to help support out at the elementary. So actually, I thank Mike and Laura Marr, both were at Monroe Elementary, helping out in the classroom today. The permanent subs at Jockey Hollow were over at the elementary schools, and the interventionists were over at the elementary schools, helping out over there. So we were able to reallocate some staff from Jockey Hollow and get them over there. Like I said, Mike jumped in, Laura jumped in today. A lot of our secondary instructional leaders at the high school jumped into classes today to help cover classes. At the elementary schools, we took some of our reading interventionists and put them in the classroom for today. At the high school, because of the way the high school schedule works out, you can you have a little bit more flexibility. It's a little bit easier at the high school than it is at the elementary school to backfill a staff member, because you can use other staff who have a duty period, and so in lieu of doing hall duty, they can cover a class. So when you take the whole staff at large, you can get a lot of that covered. We did have in the district at times have had para educators covering some of our classes at times, and then the reality was at the high school there were still a handful of classes that were not able to be single classes, but a handful of classes today where students, their teachers at home in quarantine teaching remotely, they're going to either the library or to the cafeteria and logging on and getting on with their classes there. So it's really like I said, it is getting it's getting pretty difficult to staff, and we did see a slight uptick since last week. We've had an uptick in the whole region. There's been an uptick. We have seen a few more families start to choose for total remote instruction for their kids. So I know Steve gave me some numbers too, just impact on students. Last Friday, of approximately about 490 students that could have been at Massac, we had about 311 here. So I know, Steve, I asked you for today's numbers, but it probably Luann probably won't get them until tomorrow on where we ended up today. Yeah. So, I mean, it's, you know, it's the staffing issue that is giving us the most stress right now to get through. Dr. Diane, are you on right now too?
I am. I'm here.
Okay, good. So, you know, I asked, you know, I know there's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. I talked to a lot of people from, you know, last Friday through the weekend, and you know, I just asked Dr. Diane, and if anyone here has any questions for Dr. Diane is our school medical advisor. I think, as I explained to you all at the last meeting, you know, the decisions on, you know, where we go as a school district and what mode of instruction we're in is really it's a collaborative effort made by, you know, looking at what's going on. You know, we see the health numbers increasing. You know, we are still hearing that school is a safer place for kids, that the virus is not transmitting in the schools. But it's one thing for me to say that. It comes, you know, it's a little more strength when the school medical team is also saying that, and Dr. Diane especially. Dr. Diane is on the school medical team as well as Nancy, our health director, Joanne Perigee, our school nurse advisor. So Dr. Diane, you know, one of the things I was just hoping you could address to the board, and I'll definitely have them ask some questions, is, you know, what would you say to students and staff, you know, that are worried about the spread of COVID in the schools? I think that's one of the big questions that needs to be addressed.
Right. So I think the fact that there are still students in the classroom, and the fact that we're not seeing whole classes out being sick, I think is a testament to the fact that the virus is not spreading through the classroom. Is there virus in school? Probably, as it is in every school, but we're just not seeing the numbers. If we were able to test in the schools, you know, that might be a little different. But, you know, when you think about the almost the somewhat homogeneous population that we have at Monroe, and then you look at a much bigger school district, and you're talking about the New York City public schools, where they are in fact testing in the schools, their percent positivity rate is well under 1%, and that's through the schools with regular testing. So there's no reason to think that the rates are going to be that much higher. Certainly not reaching 6% in the schools. In the community, that's a different story. Exposures, yes, that for sure we're seeing. People who are needing to go into quarantine or who have been exposed, that's for sure. The idea is that we want people who have been exposed to stay home. We want people who think they may be sick to stay home. And where before, you know, this has sort of been a mindset change, where before it used to be like, okay, here's a Tylenol, go finish school for the day. Now it's more, okay, let's do the right thing and keep you home and don't come into school at all if you're not feeling well, which is really a paradigm shift both for the adults and for the kids as well. But overall, what I would tell the kids and tell the parents is, you know, your kid is probably safer in school than they are at home, because the rate in school is probably, let's even be generous and let's say it was 3%, and the rate in the community is, let's say, 6%. You know, where would you rather have your kid? You'd rather have your kid in school where the rate is lower than out in the community where the rate is higher. So I think that's a strong statement for people to understand.
Thanks, Dr. Diane. And I would have to, you know, think that a lot of that is, you know, a lot of the success that we're seeing, you know, in the schools around, you know, really, and one of the things I keep saying is around, you know, not just in Monroe or just in the state, but around the country and even really around the world, is adherence to the mitigation strategies. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of, like, you know, the most important or effective mitigation strategies and
Sure.
how that, you know, to quantify that a little bit, perhaps?
Sure. So the probably the biggest mitigation strategy we have are masks. Masks work, whether they are a cloth mask or a surgical mask or a procedure mask or an N95 or whatever it is. masks work. When you take that in conjunction with keeping at least 6 feet apart, you're really minimizing the ability of the virus to be able to transfer from person to person. Hand washing, of course, goes a long way. Purelling goes a long way. Any way of washing your hands or cleaning your hands goes a long way. So those three things combined do a world of good. You add to that the ability to do some instruction or spend a good part of the day outdoors or inside with windows open with better ventilation. You're doing a tremendous world of good by not allowing the virus to sort of take hold. A question that a lot of people have is, well, there are lots of times where there's sort of unstructured time. Well, yeah, there's unstructured time, but generally speaking, that's not a lot of time. What about like in the high school when kids are passing by each other in the hallway? Can't they get it that way? And the answer to that is, keeping in mind that the biggest risk factors are being indoors with someone unmasked for 15 minutes or more at a spacing of less than 6 feet. That's your highest risk. And when kids are passing each other in the hallway, the time between the bells is not 15 minutes. And the time between classes is not 15 minutes. And the time and if everybody's wearing their mask, it goes a long, long way. Is a mask foolproof? No. Even an N95 is only 95% protective. It says so in the name, but 95% protected, along with staying away from another person by 6 feet, and for more than by staying away from them so that you're not in their presence for 15 minutes, does a tremendous amount. And all these things we're taking into consideration in the schools and in the school buildings and in all the activities. So, I don't know what more we could do shy of putting everybody in a bubble by themselves. But the things that the schools have taken onto themselves to make it a safe environment, we've done just about all of them, which is a great credit to the school system.
Thanks, Dr. Diane. I don't know if anyone has any questions specific for Dr. Diane. Thanks, Dr. Diane. I appreciate it. Hey, Nance, just from...
You got it.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Nance, just to follow up really quickly on your end now at the health department, can you kind of tell us, what are you seeing in the health department in terms of, what you're dealing with on the day-to-day, and if you guys are starting to identify any patterns in the community?
Sure. About a month ago, we started seeing more children being positive for COVID. But that's really starting to shift now. We're really seeing kind of like broad-based infection across our population. It's really concerning because a lot of the cases, as you know, are parents wind up becoming positive, or aunts being positive, family members becoming positive, and actually causing their children in their home to be exposed or becoming positive and winding up in the school. You've done a great job at stopping the infection from being at school, which is it's a credit to you and your staff. It really is. But really, because the infection is really broad-based. The other things that are happening now, that the governor is really at the point where what are the next steps? Is it coming from restaurants? We're not quite able to connect the dots, which is the difficult problem for public health. But this is basically where we are. We're in a very difficult spot right now.
Thanks, Nancy. And I know a lot of the at least a week or so ago when we were starting to see a spike, it sounded like there was a lot of infection around small social settings and family gatherings.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. What the health department does as part of the process is when we get a line list from the state health department, which is through their database system, And as you know, fortunately, you guys actually find out concerning positive cases before we do. Because these parents that usually when they get their test result back, either in their child or themselves, they call your the Board of Ed right away to let you know, which is wonderful. So when you give me a call, sometimes I don't always even know that person is positive because that hasn't shown up in the state database yet. So part of our process is with the health department and the Board of Ed is to work closely with you guys, and when you are able to identify a case or you receive a report, we're able to call that person back and gather more information as to, when did they have the test specifically, when did they have illness symptoms, and so that we're able to calculate if they had exposed anybody at school or in regard to their children, or telling them that they need to keep their children home quarantined. So that is the process that we work together with, and I thank you for it, for working so well with us.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, Nancy and I just spent a lot of time on the phone together, working through some of these cases. Thank you both, Nancy and Dr. Dion. I really appreciate it. I've said from since May, I think that it's a public health crisis, not something I'm necessarily trained in. So I really rely on that team to help inform any decisions that are being made.
Does anybody have questions for Nancy? Nick, you had a question?
Well, I just had more of a comment, kind of, that, I think it's interesting because our school buildings are kind of their own little ecosystems. And I think showing that, now I know that, it's heavily weighted towards one age group, but I think, as our medical advisor said, seeing the kids wearing masks, masks work. We see it in our schools that, at least with our school age population, the positivity rate is low. And I think that, of all the people who are on our staff and who've been in education can say, at least anecdotally, if not from hard data, I don't have any data to present, but students being in the school building is much better for not only instruction but for mental health, and we've had this mental health discussion many times too. I guess my only slight concern about after the holidays, getting into more winter season and all of that stuff, and whatever the state decides to do, I do have a slight concern for any anxiety felt by faculty and staff who may not feel comfortable, may feel like they are, may feel like they're at risk because, as we just heard, the positivity rate in the New York City public school system of students is very low. But for faculty and staff, I think that just, again, anecdotally, I think there is some anxiety about going to work, and I think a lot of people who have to go to work in this pandemic feel that. And so I'm not offering a solution. I don't think there's a solution. This is an industry right now where you come to work, and so as we go through the next couple months, I think we have to think about also our faculty and staff's mental health and physical well-being, and that should and I know that, Joe, that's obviously has to be part of your decision-making process.
No, I appreciate that, Nick, and it's absolutely it is, and I know Marie's here, and I met with all the faculty on Friday. I've had some really difficult conversations, and there is genuine fear and anxiety, for sure, and there's also, I think, a staff who is really, and I know this is, talking to my colleagues around the area, it's the same in just about every district. Teachers are maxed out right now. They're really maxed out. I think one of the things I'd like to do when we come back from Thanksgiving is, try to continue the same schedule we're doing with the Wednesdays. We were giving time for our elementary teachers on Wednesdays to be able to meet with their remote, their total remote kids, and to have some time to collaborate. I want to do the same at the secondary level as well, because I know people are working, into the early morning hours in some cases, and there needs to be some kind of balance in their lives, or we're gonna lose people. We're gonna lose good teachers. I know a lot of really good people that are they're at the match right now. Joe?
So Joe, that's what I'd like to echo. You know, I am not a medical doctor, I'm a retired teacher, and I do understand it doesn't affect the children a lot, but it is affecting that group of people that have to teach the children. And even though we're saying that our children are safe in school, when they see large numbers, they're saying it's family spread. So somebody in that family is bringing it home. Not saying it's the child. Somebody's bringing it home, and it's like wildfire. And I just need to keep the janitors, the bus drivers, the teachers, the cafeteria workers in mind. Okay, so the children aren't getting it as much. It's bouncing off them. I got it. But it's that support staff that teaches them, feeds them, throws out the rock salt for them that I'm worried about.
Yeah,
If it's not the child, then I think we have to just keep on being very safe.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think if we see any kind of spread like that in the schools, this is a very different conversation immediately. Al?
In addition,
Right. I agree.
in addition to the anxiety that some may be feeling, it's also, I notice where I work, it's also it's not an easy task teaching the classroom during this, but also teaching the remote kids at the same time. So it's almost like you're doing double duty. You're trying to teach classroom, you got the kids online at home, doing two things at the same time. I mean, that alone is stressful. Then you pile on the fact that, we have a pandemic, and teachers are under a lot of stress.
A lot of stress.
Well-
You're absolutely right. I mean, what I'm seeing, when we walk around the district and you watch the teachers doing both, it's
Very
amazing, but
difficult.
it's taxing and it's taking a toll. It is.
Jeff, what did you say? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, from personal experience at home, my wife, to Alan's point, your job doesn't stop at 3 in the afternoon. You're there till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and on the weekends. And now you throw in the pandemic and you're trying to do lesson plans for that align to the kids that are in the classroom and the ones that are doing it, from remote learning. And it becomes this. It's a 24/7 cycle now at this point. So completely understand, to Nick's point too, that the concern about the well-being of the staff and making sure that their heads are in the right place and that we're supporting them as much as we can going forward. Trying to make it as streamlined as possible going forward.
Absolutely.
David?
Joe, just a thought, we're all sharing the same concern here. Any thoughts, or maybe we can look into an additional, like a PD day? So this way the teachers can get some support, bring in someone to help, talk to them. A non-teaching day, if we can figure out a way to do it. I don't know, I'm just throwing out an idea there to help our staff, all of them.
You could try to look creatively at doing something. Maybe even some additional, some other half days or something. The only thing we just have to be careful of is we have the waiver for 177 days,
Yeah.
and that's where we are right now. So we have to make sure that we don't, that we, even if maybe we tack something out at the end of the year, but that might actually be adding on to the teacher year. So we have to really be careful with that. But I think there's something creative there that we could do.
Yeah, or some
Do
half
something with half
days where we can,
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
something.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys understand that. And I hope that, I know the teachers are, they're struggling. And they're struggling all over.
I didn't mean to start this conversation. I hope it's understood that I didn't intimate that you weren't keeping teacher, safety at the forefront. That wasn't
No.
my intent. It was just that, I live with a teacher. I don't live with a student. So I see the teacher side of it much more. I definitely see it in my, college students, at least the freshman college. That's a whole separate meeting. But I think that what we're doing right now, you have to balance the safety of the students and also their mental health and also that of the staff. And I think we are, as a board and as an administrative team, I think you guys are doing that as absolutely as best as you can on a day-to-day basis. But I do agree going forward, especially after the holidays, pending what happens, that we should try to perhaps be very creative about PD or somehow linking the teachers up to,
Like, take a breather day.
or just get that, something.
Joe, what about bus drivers too? Is the bus company experiencing
You
staffing
know, it's
issues
funny,
too?
I didn't mention it, and I was thinking about it when I was talking about the staffing issues. That was the one in the book, which I didn't write down, but I know
'Cause that could be coming
Jack
up.
talked to Mike Lawler, and that's starting to hit a little bit of a pressure point between bus drivers who are being forced to, on their outside lives, being for, family member in positive, they've got a quarantine, so
'Cause
we're
we
okay
could-
right now. But
Yeah, because that could force us to a remote too, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Anybody have anything else for Joe? Joe, do you have anything else under superintendent report?
That was it.
All righty. All right, Jim Stossel, you are up. Come on down.
Thank you.
Did you want to tell them the name?
Dr. Diane and Nancy, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. We're going to move on, but I really appreciate you guys jumping on with us.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm coming to you tonight with two resource requests for advanced placement science. One's for biology and one's for chemistry. We are, as Jeff said, at the 10-year mark of using the books that we currently have, and both UConn and AP require us to review our materials.
I can say.
Joe, this isn't working. Could you just advance the next slide, please?
Sorry.
So we had a small team together to look at the various books. These are the teachers that will be teaching these courses and myself. Next slide, please, Joe. For the biology book, we currently use the Campbell's Biology. And what I'd like to replace it with is Campbell's Biology in Focus, which starts to get a little bit confusing. It's been a great book for us. We've used the Campbell's Biology book for years and years. The new title is very, very similar, same authors. It's a little bit shorter. It's roughly the same topics, just kind of divided up a little bit differently. So 43 chapters in the newer book translate over to 54 chapters in the book we're currently using. We looked very closely at the content, really didn't find any gaps there. The shorter book actually saves us about $100 over the replacement cost for the other text that we currently use. The online materials are pretty good. And the other text that we looked at, this is one of the top 3 books that the various AP classes around the country use. The other 2 we looked at, and the cost of teachers of changing that just didn't look worth it. And the next book I don't have a hard copy for, because most of the books now, the copies you get are digital copies, so there's a link in the presentation if you're interested in looking at it. It's the entire text as a PDF. We currently use the Zoomdall and Zoomdall Chemistry from 2010, and I'd look to replace that with Zoomdall and Zoomdall Chemistry 2020. Again, probably the biggest improvement is the online materials. The text is almost identical. What they've done is, after the change to AP, they've kind of aligned some of the questions a little bit better so that it's focusing on big idea number 1, for example, and you can kind of tell where the questions are targeting the standards for the AP test. And then the costs are $8,500 for the biology book, which includes shipping and providing copies of instructor materials, the lab book, and other support materials for free. And for the AP chemistry book, it's a little over $8,600 for one classroom set. Any questions on either?
How many sections do we run of each course in a normal year?
We typically run one section of AP Chemistry, and that could be up to 25 students, and then AP Bio and Yukon Bio would both use the same book. We've run both courses in 1 year. This year we only have the one Yukon Bio running, just because of enrollment this year.
And do we have, I know we have a physics teacher. Do we have any do we have AP Physics?
We do.
Oh, we
and
do.
we replaced those a couple years ago, so we're not ready in the cycle for those.
And I'm assuming AP Physics has a lower enrollment than these two?
AP Physics 1, we have 2 sections there. They're usually pretty full. It's a junior class. And then AP Physics 2 is a much smaller window. It's usually one section, smaller section size than most.
And the Yukon Bio and the AP Chem, that's junior and seniors.
Right.
And they have to take, do they have to take a chemistry or a biology before they get?
Right. AP recommends, College Board recommends that both are not first-year courses.
Right. Okay. Well, great.
Anybody else have questions? So this is the first review. We will have a second review and a vote anticipated next time. As we've talked about in the past, if this is approved, this would be for next school year, so that it would be built into this year's budget, but for July 1st, 21 purchase and for the next school year.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Jim?
Does anybody have anything else before we move on to adjournment? Jerry's already like, yep,
Got his
adjourn.
hand up already.
Jerry will take your motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Do I have a second? Thank you, David. So next time we will be starting with our budget presentation. We should have the books before then, right? Okay, and then so our next meeting will be the that first. What I'm not even sure what date that is. Hold on.
The 6th.
The 7th of December. So that'll be our first budget workshop, presentation, and going right into the budget workshop. Nick.
Are we gonna, like when we do the workshops, are we gonna just kind of like go through the sections, or on each night are we gonna have like we're covering?
I think we're gonna do like, I don't know, because in the past we've kind of like, last year we kind of totally blew how we've done it in the
Last year
past.
was, yeah.
So why don't we,
Yeah. Usually the superintendent has a section, right, Donna, and we just go through sections.
right.
Oh, okay.
So I guess we're gonna see how that's gonna go this year.
In the past, we've done the executive like overview of it, and then we've broken it down by
Area.
like those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So last year we did it a little differently. We
Right.
did it line by line.
Right.
Yeah, we could be prepared to do it either way. So.
No, I'd rather not do line by line.
No?
Give it Nick
I think that's what Ron and I are doing this Saturday.
I think that for some of them, we may want to do line by line, you know, some of the bigger.
Well, and that's, well, I know, Jerry, you know, what we say in jest, we mean in earnest, but I think that, I was thinking last meeting, we were talking about going line by line, and I was thinking how last year, like, if we didn't go line by line, we wouldn't have had that 45-minute discussion on the mail courier. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that broke the bank, but that was something that a lot of us are really passionate about, and we had a really good discussion about it, but we wouldn't have caught that if we didn't go, you know, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but.
We can do sections and do individual lines within those sections too. Yeah. However, it makes sense to logically break it up. Right. In terms of presentation.
Right. Yes, because some sections we may want to do line by line, more like a, I don't know, a special ed or payroll and stuff like that. But like in athletics, we may not need to go, let's say, line by line of that. Sorry, Jeff. But be prepared for
Twice
line by
now,
line.
Yeah, I think that's a good way, like, everyone should be prepared to be as in-depth as you can, and then
Right.
we can decide when we're there.
But if we have time in our groups to speak with that
Yeah.
faculty for there, then we know that section, and maybe we can avoid some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Agreed.
as well, so.
Great. Perfect. All right, we have a motion and a second by Jerry and a second by David to adjourn. All in favor? Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Great meeting this evening.